Welcome to Angels of Light Foundation, a voice for children and teenagers podcast. We are giving a platform to our younger voices, children and teenagers, sharing their thoughts on our mindfulness in nature programs and books, plus the educational system. Asking them what type of school would they want to learn in? What would they like to see change in our world? Finding out what gifts they hold and why they feel they are here on this planet. We believe, as parents and educators, that we should strive to raise children with a voice and for them to be heard.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Magic and Miracles, A Voice for Children. We're here joined again today for part 2 with Josie Palmer to discuss A Voice for Children, but this time on a few different topics that we didn't quite finish off in the first episode. So welcome back, Josie Palmer. And obviously everyone knows Charles, my partner in crime. So thanks, Josie, for joining us and giving your insights to a few more questions that we missed off on the first episode, but which I'm sure people will love. Okay, darling. Our first question was, over the observation of working, with children, going around schools, communities, I've noticed, it's an observation that I've noticed. Maybe I'm completely wrong, I'll let you answer. But I've noticed that when I'm in schools or in centres or going to teach mindfulness or in large groups, that the boys are very quiet. The boys seem to be less confident than the girls. I'm not saying they're not confident. They just come across less confident. They're more quieter. The girls seem more opinionated, more stronger with their views, even to the point of this podcast, whereas it was difficult for me to get a boy to come on and share his views. I can get loads of girls and young ladies and teenagers. Boys, it is a little bit of a struggle because they all turned us down. They didn't want to speak. So anyway, that was my first question to you, if you can answer that.
Sure. So there's definitely a lot of different factors that could affect that. I would say that in my experience, I haven't had that much experience in a classroom, but from what I've seen, I would say that it's not my natural habitat, as can relate a lot of my friends. My friends also are very active people. They're not comfortable or at home in a classroom most of the case. I just feel like most guys I know are more comfortable outdoors, moving, being active, and school is more of a requirement than a privilege for them. They take it maybe for granted, or maybe more as something they have to do rather than they get to do, which is interesting because some people don't get the same access to education, but it's very taken for granted.
Do you feel, I was quite surprised asking quite a few young men that were even your age from different parts of the world that I knew, they just wouldn't come on and talk.
Well, also, it may be a similar case where they're not so comfortable sharing. In my experience, I've seen that girls are more sociable, generally speaking, than boys, because boys are they're inherently competitive. It's programmed in their mind. They're trying to compete. They're always trying to be better. They're always trying to, surpass their peers, which is normal, which can be healthy in a lot of situations. But if, say, a normal kid I found in a public school, if I had asked them to go on this podcast, they would probably say no, because what if my friends find it and make fun of me? Honestly. And
do you find that girls don't really care?
Not in that case. No, I wouldn't say so, because it's a completely different social programming, I would say, when you're being brought up as a girl or a boy. As a boy, my childhood, my upbringing has been very different from the norm, but I'd still feel that I'm a very sociable person compared to most boys. And I'd say I'm kind of the exception. I feel that's why it's harder to find guys who would go on the podcast because they're not as sociable, they're not as comfortable in social environments, and more with their friends or where they're more relaxed. Podcasts probably aren't their cup of tea, for no better word.
Oh, but so the girls have, I mean, I've had girls on here of 9, 11, and there's no problem whatsoever. So we really want to get that question. What would you feel, Charles?
Well, just to elaborate on that, Joseph, can you maybe expand or upon the competition, you know, how boys are maybe socialized or programmed to be a little bit more competitive, and how that, you know, how that plays into being reluctant or a little, I don't know, resistant to coming on a podcast or sharing their feelings or talking about their thoughts in a public setting?
Well, I'd say, with my experience, it's very limited, but I'd say boys are generally less emotionally open and honest than girls. Just generally speaking, it's completely generally speaking. I'm completely generalizing, but overall, I'd say that's the case with my experience. I'm sure you've experienced some form of this where guys kind of conceal their opinions and emotions with the public and with people that they don't know very well. It's mostly their close friends that they open up with, in my experience.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think boys are socialized to be a little bit more closed off with their feelings? And also, I do know what you're talking about.
The societal norms have played a big part in that. It's been that way for centuries, you know, for as long as time stood. I mean, I can think of, you know, men are sent to the battlefields in the Middle Ages. And they're meant to be tough and strong in defending their people. And in the Middle Ages, they're sent out, you know, 7, 9 years old as knights. And, you know, they're forced to grow up so fast that they don't really have that more personal, emotional stage that I feel like more girls had at that time. So I feel like that has kind of passed on to this time in a way, but obviously I'm generalizing. But
yeah, I think that, you know, looking back and going back, and as I've gone along, I mean, it's not all boys, but it is a large majority when I go into surroundings, whether it's a centre or a gathering or a community, or even recently, there's sort of, I was in a schooling system, but it's a homeschooling school. I noticed there were some boys talking, but again, the girls were much more opinionated, much more stronger with their views, more likely to speak up. There was a few of the boys, but I'd say it's like 30% speak up, 70% don't. And I was just really noticing that, because when I go to the younger children, so when I'm in the room with younger children, let's say they're 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, it's a different scenario. They'll speak up. That's why, if anyone's listening, if anyone knows the answer to that, I just know the older that I went, the quieter they got.
I think that I know why that may be. For the younger ones, young children, anybody who's been around a young child knows that they're more blatantly honest than adults. They're blatantly honest. They don't care about what anybody thinks. They just say it, and because they don't fully understand the concept of social cues. That's why young children are very important to spend time with, because they will give you their honest opinion. They will be completely straightforward. I know that from my case. I know that from a lot of other kids. I mean, unless they're lying about, you know, taking cookies from a cookie jar, they're going to be really, really honest with you. So that's pretty important. So if you want truth or you want honesty, young children.
They're really honest. I just see that the girls continue to be very open and forward with their words, and a bit quieter. So it's really, really interesting. I just noticed it the last, even just prior to the pandemic, you know, teaching around here or wherever I was going, that the girls much easily share and speak up, and the boys just like, no, not really. So we speak up more. That's what I say. Speak up more, please. You know, everyone wants to hear your opinion, because the girls are going to railroad at some point, I think, going forward. So anyway, that was our first question. And then we have another question here. What pressures or expectations, if you have any, do you feel are placed on boys in society, in the world today?
That's a really good question. That is a really
I'll
good question.
answer that question. I'm not taking credit.
Well, I'd say pressure is really high these days. Really, really high. I haven't lived in other times, so I can't really compare it. But I'd say getting into a good school, getting good grades, growing up quick, maturing, being independent, being, successful in whatever you do, these are all things that you're expected to do. And that can build up a lot. School's not easy, especially during COVID. We had to go online, and then, no socializing, and then that kind of took away the fun part of school. Well, quote unquote fun. I'm sure some other children's, schooling experience can be pretty tough. But for the most part, a lot of people, their most favorite part about school is the socialization. It's
They
a
tell
lot
me.
of socializing, a lot of friends. And then that was taken away. So all the pressure was just moved to you at home, isolated, doing work, not seeing anyone. Also worried about this pandemic. At the beginning, we're like, we're all going to die. But, it's also, pressure. Getting to schools is harder than it's ever been for college.
Yeah.
Getting into like a really good college is very hard. For instance, UCLA, I was thinking going there, applying there for college. The acceptance rate is very low. My grandmother told me it was 9%, but I'm not completely sure. I want to fact check that. I haven't fact checked yet. But Ivy Leagues, Harvard, all those are virtually impossible to get into unless you are a valedictorian. All the hopes of going to those schools out the window unless you're a stellar student. And you have to be like that. And you have to have discipline. You have to have a really good work rate. And that is very difficult. And it's expected of you if you want to go to those schools.
Do you feel that talking to, I know you've got lots of friends and they're in soccer and everything. Do they discuss that? Do they discuss the pressures and, having to be someone or they're from their family, or what do they say?
So they're always talking about how depressing their workload is. It's nonstop. They are getting depressed. I know so many people that have minor depression, I'd say, not anything horribly serious, but very depressed and in a dark mental state because they have unbelievable workloads. They wake up, go to school, do soccer practice, do homework, eat, sleep, repeat. 5 days, 2 days of rest, repeat. 36 weeks out of the year?
That's already
It's horrible.
that pressure from them or society, or do you feel it's their parents?
It's more society because traditional schooling, public schooling was invented either late 1800, around the Industrial Revolution, by the Rockefellers and the JP Morgans and all these people, the big oil barons, and they created it for their sole purpose to create workers. And for that, that's why they created the public school system. And since then, it's been modified. It's evolved in a way, but at the core of that is still to create workers. In school, it's not very creative. It's more learning. It's like a command. It's like a computer. They tell you commands, you memorize them, you repeat them back for tests, for quizzes, for essays, for everything. It's very rinse and repeat. And I heard this from a very, very distinguished professor that I can't recall the name of. I think he was at this university in Michigan, Hillsdale. Oh no, not in Michigan, I believe, but it's Hillsdale College. And he told me school information is outdated by 10 years. In college, 10 years. They just teach you how to work. They don't teach you extremely valuable, up-to-date information because they want you to give you the work rate and the work ethic, but they don't have updated information.
Did he say that was the same as Harvard in them or not? That's in a completely Eton, Harvard, or them they're all in a different league, I think, correct?
Well, it depends on what you study, I'd say, because business doesn't, it's not always fluctuating like, say, neuroscience or electrical engineering is most likely 10 years back-ish, 5 to 10 years back. I'm not super well versed on it, but it makes sense.
You talking to your friends, then they are very stressed out and worried and anxious because of the workload already.
Every last one, including me. Every last one.
You're,
Wow, Joseph. Wow. Well, thank you for thank you for just saying that, like for being honest and vulnerable about these pressures that you're talking about when you were talking about like the warriors going to battle and the pressures that men have to go and either fight a war and to survive, and then to talk about the pressures of creating workers, like the school environment to create workers since like the Industrial Revolution. And it's just shocking that you feel that, like you actually feel that pressure on you, that like somehow they're trying to create you to get out there and push you out the door, like push you out and go become, I don't know, like a worker bee.
I'm surprised that you said that you find the pressure as well, because your family, Joseph, is quite relaxed, yeah?
Mhm.
I met your mom, she seems, a bit similar to me, quite relaxed, easygoing. And you feel the pressure in which way do you personally then?
Personally, I have a very large workload, and also I have big dreams. I have, expectations set upon me, which are valid, but I have to complete them, and they're not easy to complete. I want to take over my dad's business. I want to do well in that business. I want to invest in private equity and commercial real estate. But for that, I need capital. I need a good income. I need a good job, and I need a stable situation. And for that, a lot of work, a lot of perseverance. And that just doesn't, it's not like a switch that you turn on. It's something you really have to fight for. And that, it's not easy. It's really not. And I have big goals and I want to achieve them. And that's the pressure.
So do you feel you put the pressure on yourself then?
In a way, yeah. But also, I have family members who are very successful at what they do. And, I'm one of two male successors to my entire family on my dad's side. And, one's doing very well, the other one's doing very well. And I'd like to do well too. And, it's just one of two. Before there were four, now there's two. I want to do well. I want to be successful, and not just for them, for me. It would make me feel very happy to be accomplished, but I don't want to work until I'm 80 like my grandfather did. I want to work and then build up a passive income. Sorry, this is turning into like a full business.
So click here for the for the what is it, the funnel?
Yes. But I'll wrap this up real quick.
Yeah.
I want to be successful, but I want to do it holistically, organically. I don't want to just force it and have 4 hours of sleep for 10 years and then just retire. I don't want to do that.
So if everyone's got this pressure, there has to be something that has to give and change. So what if you had a solution for that, or you could say, okay, this is what I think, what would you say to people? What would you say to the educational system? Or do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Well, yeah. So I'd say a little bit of pressure can be very healthy, but a lot of it can be very dangerous. A little bit of pressure is enough to have somebody motivated to accomplish a certain goal, but too much pressure can unmotivate someone. It can make them so overwhelmed they want to quit, which I have experienced I've met other people who have felt that, and it's very unhealthy. Workloads, I don't believe in a lot of homework, because what's the point of going to school for eight hours a day, going home, homework?
You're over full to the point you shut off. It's not really going in. I agree. So you're saying do the work in the schools and then maybe small bit of homework at the end of the week to see if they've taken in, what they've been listening to this week. Is that what you feel?
Absolutely. Maybe a little bit of homework, but not 4 hours a night. I know people who have 4, 5, 6 hours a day of homework on top of everything.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Which is,
Growing up, I didn't have a lot of homework.
maybe that's changed. I mean,
Seems to have changed a lot. Yeah.
yeah. It is what it is, isn't my favorite saying, but in this case, there's not an entirely large amount of things I can do to, convince school boards because they're school boards.
Yeah,
This can help if somebody sees it.
I agree.
Word. Maybe this is something that would be amazing.
I think you're
Yeah.
right. Same message wherever I've gone around the world in schools and done hundreds of children, and I speak to them, and it's the homework. It's just stresses them out. They close down, and it's not just here. It's everywhere. I mean, we spoke to the 2 girls in Lebanon. The girl said the homework, and she's 11. Like, it's just too much, and even here. So it doesn't matter who I speak to, they're more happier, the children with less homework, with a little bit of homework, they seem to thrive and want to go in. Whereas if there's more, so if anyone's listening, there needs to be an adjustment because
Powerful message. The new generation, you and your peers, Joseph, you mentioned that just the classroom work is just not creative. And I think part of the key to changing this planet, changing this world, is to allow you, your peers, to be creative and shine that light and let that be kind of fostered and built.
Yeah.
And these pressures are getting in the way of that a little bit, and kind of searching for balance.
You're right. That's where the creativity comes from, and that's when there's a birth to something unique when somebody's in that flow of. If you're overpressured and overcooked, that can't drop in that magical creation. Do you know what I mean? It comes normally in a relaxed, more relaxed, chilled out state. That it comes in organically, like you just said, Josie. When they're creating something, it's good to look back at the people that created electricity, or they created this, or they created that, is to see actually how did they find that? Were they just there pondering away in their workshop? I think so most of the time, and it comes that uniqueness, that creativity. But if you're overloaded, again, lack of creativity, can't think for themselves, and then they're in a system that they get in a loop, and it's difficult to get out. I do think that the pandemic did for a lot of entrepreneurial people online. I see that a lot of young people are working online around the world, traveling.
I see some positives with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had friends who've done well in the stock market, surprisingly, during this online era, which is shocking because kids my age making a lot of money on the stock market. But obviously, it's forced people into social media, into YouTube and all these sites, and that can be pretty detrimental. And if you get addicted to it, it's very hard to stop, and it's like a drug. So that is a big negative to the whole social distance type 2020 apocalyptic life, that it was forcing people to go online and spend more time with technology. And now I know people who cannot spend 20 minutes without looking at their phone, without checking something.
People don't even want to meet people anymore because of that. They work online and they stay there and they keep with their few friends, and they don't meet with people. They don't want to mix with people. It's very interesting, the way we all came out the other end, out of the dishwasher, completely different, but in another sense, I think a lot of awakening, as we were just discussing earlier, that we wanted to just have a quick point on the sound of freedom, which I know, Joseph, your parents have seen. You haven't, but Charles saw it today. I saw it the other week, and that is something that we feel that everyone, don't you think, Charles, should go see it? It's very important. It's bringing light into the awakenment of the world. It's shining a light on a lot of things. But I think it's a really important film to see, educational-wise, what's really going on, that everything's coming and being exposed. So I suppose that's one side of media that they can use to expose the things, the darker side of things that are coming out, and then and help these children, help rescues around the world, wouldn't you say, Charles?
Yeah, it's this movie has to be shared. You know,
That's what we're talking. Yeah, it has to be shared.
the media is one way to get the movie out there, but it's all word of mouth. We have to talk about it, but the media is also trying to suppress it and hide the movie too from the truth coming out. So we have to have these conversations, you know, despite the resistance, despite them trying to bury it.
Well, it's the same, you know, the sound of freedom is like us coming up with the voice for children. You know, it's a
Yes.
let them be heard, let them
Mm.
know what's going on. You know, share it, speak up, see it. You know, go and support the movie, go tell people about it, more awareness, and to look after each other as a community. And you know, looking after. I remember growing up in the street, everyone used to look out for someone's child. We used to all just play in the street. You know, and that seems to have disappeared for whatever reason. You know, I don't know, but it's awareness of, again, helping one another, looking after the children, listening to the children, caring for the children, nurturing for the children, and so that it becomes a different way of going forward on this planet. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? You know, there has to be, if someone's listening, you know, listening to what you've been saying about the education system, the homework. That children, in my day, we never used the word stress. We never used the word stressed, depressed. Never used anything like that. We just didn't. Did we like school particularly? I was probably one that didn't. You know, I don't like to conform in any way. But looking back, I probably went to a good school compared to, you know, relatively what I see today. So yeah, so we just wanted to share the Sound of Freedom, because if anyone's listening, please do see the film. I know it's only showcasing in America at the minute. It's at the moment, it needs to be seen worldwide, so someone needs to pick it up to be able to show it. You know, on I think it should be on every platform personally. But yeah, did you have anything you would like to share with us, Joseph, that you feel is important before we leave? Anything at all that you feel that we've missed?
I have something very cliche but very important to say. When I played golf today, I saw someone who wasn't very happy, who worked at this restaurant at the golf course. And instead of being annoyed with someone because they're spreading their annoyance possibly to you, I would say spread positivity as much as you can, because it really makes a difference in someone's day. If you're not having a good day, or something came up that is frustrating you, or muddy up the waters, I'd say just spread as much positivity as you can, even if someone isn't being nice to you, because maybe they're just going through something, or it's probably not you. Even if it is, just be happy and spread a lot of positivity, because that's what we need in this world. It's our world is lacking in that supply. So I'd say
Positivity and support. Did you say anything to that person at all, or?
I was just as kind as possible to them.
Do you think they know?
Our server was having like an off day, and I just tried to be as nice as possible to her, and asked her how she was doing, and sorry, what?
What did she say back to you?
Oh, she was just like, I'm fine, thank you for asking. You know, I just care about people.
That's also being mindful about not yourself, but also other people. So because you were aware and witnessed that, you were aware to see that. Some people wouldn't notice that, and if they're a bit off with them, they're like, why are they rude to me? What have I done? I haven't done anything wrong. So they'll go on their story instead of being observant that this person, like you said, everyone's got something going on in their life, and to just ask them. It's interesting when we even go into a supermarket or a store, my husband will look at the name badge of the person and say, "Hi, Paul, how are you doing today?" And they'll say, they'll stop and they'll say, "Oh, really good, thank you. You're the first person to ask me, in a long time." Because everyone's in a rush to bag and get out, or probably doesn't even see the person, or probably they're on the phone with the groceries checking out. So you're right, is to be more aware of people around you, be more kinder.
If I may add on to that, be the difference in someone's day.
Exactly. At the end of the day, sit there and think about what you've done. What impact have you had that day? I think, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, the impact that you have on people can be very, very significant, even if they're, even if it doesn't seem like it. And one interaction can change someone's day.
One
And
action of negativity can end someone's lifelong if they're
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not saying that, it's just to be aware, you're right, to be aware of people, to be aware when someone's sad or having a bad day, not to go off at them and just check in and how are you today, how are you doing? Yeah, that you're correct in saying that 100% is just to really see the person.
Right.
Thank you for that, Joseph. I received that, by the way. I mean, you just with your words, you're making a difference. You're changing the world, and you're shining that light. And it made me think of I think there's a phrase that it takes a lot more darkness to make a room dark, but it only takes one small tiny light to light up the room. And that's what we do every time we smile at someone, ask how their day is. But Terry, like you're so right. It takes awareness. I don't think some people aren't trying to ignore people. They just don't see it. They just don't see it, because they're going on to the next thing. And what a blessing and a gift that you have, Joseph, to just notice.
Awareness of that, yeah. And hopefully that people listening to this will get something out of it, to check in with the person at the supermarket or the coffee shop or in the store. Just be, how are you doing, how you feeling, just really connect with that person, and just so they know that they're there, they're not just an assistant that people aren't really interested in. I think, in any way it's good to check in and ask how people are doing. That's a lovely way, I think, to end it. So,
if I may add one last thing, thank you very much for listening. Again, you could do anything with this time. And you could do something that's very, let's say, less impactful than listening to this. This really helps, let's say, educate, and not even educate, more help people become aware, helps them become more aware of children. And I'm not just talking about myself, I'm talking about, other children's experiences. And it's really important to hear children's experiences and their opinions. And there's not a lot of kids who would, gladly come up and speak about their time. I don't know very many who would. And I'm so happy I did this, because I really, really, really hope this is making a change, because I really see a great positivity in this. Thank you.
and thank you so much, and thanks for that, Josie. That's why we always ask people to please share it as much as possible with as many people, and to really listen to our children on the planet. So really, they do have a voice, they do have a lot of wisdom, and they come with a lot of wisdom that I think we're missing. So it is important for us to hear them and see them for the individual little souls that they are, and allow them to bring their light for this planet, what they're here to do and be. So thank you everyone for joining myself, Joseph and Charles. We really appreciate everyone listening. We appreciate your comments. If anyone would like to come on to A Voice for Children on the Magical Miracles podcast, please get in contact with us. at angelsoflightonline.com, but all the information will be below anyway. And yeah, thanks a lot for everybody who joins us. Take care, lots of love.